Now, the investigation, when it needs to start, again, it comes back to how serious the allegations are. If it's super serious, it needs to start immediately. If it's not as serious, it can wait a little bit, but I wouldn't wait too long. Evidence is going to go stale if steps are not taken quickly. Witnesses might forget what happened that day, and key issues too from the witnesses, whether if it's not a serious allegation, but just generally what was happening at the workplace that day. The longer you wait, if it's 3 days down the road, it's going to be harder for people that you talk to remember what was going on, versus if you talk to them a day after the incident or allegation happened, the employees can pick up and remember, like, yeah, there was something weird going on that day. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I noticed people weren't talking as much. Okay, what was that about? Versus if you wait a week or two for those questions, the witnesses might not remember that down the road. So you need to keep that into consideration on the time when you need to start the investigation. Now, evidence, everything is evidence. And sometimes I get the question like, well, it wasn't written down on the internal, company document, so it's not evidence. It doesn't matter where it's been written, if it's been written down or not. Obviously, documents are better, but witness statements are evidence. Everything is witness, is documents or potential evidence. So it's key. Employers need to take steps to preserve the evidence. Video, if there's workplace video, steps to maintain that so it's not deleted. Emails, documents. The other thing too to keep in mind, if people have access to these types of documents or videos, make sure that they're secured so things don't go missing. And start pulling that together and saving it. Yep. And it's key to think about what type of evidence, and I would approach this very broadly so that you don't miss anything as well. And keep an open mind. You never know what might turn into evidence and what you might need. So go into this very broad. Now, the witness interviews are probably some of the key aspect, the most important aspect of the investigation. You need to start thinking through what witnesses, what order they're going to be interviewed. Should you give them advance notice? Should it be sprung on them? What questions are going to be asked? Are they going to be recorded? Who's going to be present? Is it going to be one person, two people doing the interview? I generally recommend having two people from the company, one person asking the questions so that they can assess the person being interviewed on their credibility and things like that, and somebody else taking notes. And it's good to kind of split those tasks up during the interviews. And also, where should they take place? And now with COVID, before COVID, it was these interviews never took place remotely. Now, after COVID, they could be potentially conducted telephonically or video conference, but you need to be careful about this. I'm a big proponent about being in the room with the person as well, so you could assess credibility and things like that too. Now, I've got a lot of text on this slide, and I'm coming to an end here. I'll wrap this up pretty quickly, and we'll get to some of the questions. Witness interviews, I've got some guidance from the EEOC, and it's actually linked in the document that I've got as a handout as well, the full EEOC recommendations on how to do witness interviews and investigations. So just some good reminders here on this slide. I won't walk through it, but it's going to be available for everybody. I will make these slides available. And I've got some sample questions to ask, alleged harasser, and to ask third parties as well. Very open-ended questions. And again, not coming in to make any judgments or anything like that, or giving your opinion on whether you think there's validity to the complaint or not, but just really being open-minded and just gathering as much information. Now, the other thing too, and it's a very common reaction, and it comes up a lot in depositions too, where the the interviewer starts getting bad information and they think it's going to hurt the company. So they start trying to avoid getting that bad information and not asking questions about it. But when you're getting that bad information, that's when you need to get into it even more and pull that information out and get as much of that out as you can at the time. And I know it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, this sounds bad, I'm not going to ask about it, but that's where you need to delve into it. And the more facts, even if it's bad for the company, you get that on the table, you can deal with it sooner rather than having that surprise you later. So once you're getting that information, really get into it. And the more you learn, the better. You've got to ask every question and follow up on every lead on that. Now, and I've talked about this, what should not be said during the investigation, any kind of conclusions, emotional statements. A big issue is you can't promise confidentiality, but you can ask that the witness maintain confidentiality of the investigation and ask them not to talk to others about it until the investigation is complete. But you need to be careful that, if they're talking to other people about workplace issues, we can't definitely prohibit them outrightly, but we can ask that they maintain that confidentiality for the investigation so that the investigation is done properly.